funding their shutdown. So, the crisis will not end by sending $20 billion to Argentina. We need to get serious about fixing the problems here at home, starting with health care. And Democrats, our position has not changed. We want the same thing that an overwhelming majority of Americans want, which is to end this shutdown and halt the health care crisis that will send premiums spiking for tens of millions of people. 80% of Americans want to extend the ACA tax credits. 58% of Trump voters want to extend those credits. We need to end this shutdown and halt the health care crisis. And we can do both. It's not either or, as some Republicans seem to think. We've been wanting to talk to the president and Republicans, have serious negotiations with the president and Republicans for months. Finally, after months and months of asking Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson to sit down with Hakeem Jeffries and I, and asking the president to sit down with us, where he said yes, then he said no, finally at the last minute, the president agreed to have one meeting right the night before money was running out. But it was not a productive discussion and nothing was agreed to. Now, yesterday, President Trump claimed that he is talking with Democrats on fixing health care. He now clearly knows that he has to show the American people at least some fig leaf of caring. So he said he's talking with Democrats on the health care issue. Only one problem. It's not true. I'm not sure what the president was talking about yesterday, but he certainly hasn't called my office or Leader Jeffries. Still, Jeffries and I happily welcome a chance to talk with the president and with Republicans, to sit down and seriously negotiate with them so we can address the health care crisis facing Americans. The sooner, the better. But it takes two sides to negotiate, and Republicans, particularly Speaker Johnson, who seems to be the nub of the crisis, Republicans still haven't come to the table in a serious way. Speaker Johnson, perhaps more than anyone else, has dug in and shut the door on any cooperation. Johnson has become a massive roadblock to progress. Yesterday, he even said, quote, "There's nothing to negotiate." And he sent the House home for yet another week. The House hasn't held a vote now for 18 days. They haven't been in session for 2 weeks. That proves beyond a doubt that Speaker Johnson is causing and not interested in ending the shutdown. Clearly, at this point, he is the main obstacle. So ending this shutdown will require Donald Trump to step in and push Speaker Johnson to negotiate. Because without the president's involvement, Speaker Johnson and MAGA Republicans in the House are increasingly dug in. Johnson has pushed this partisan, one-sided CR and told us to take it or leave it. I heard my friend, Leader Thune, say it's a bipartisan bill. There hasn't been one drop of Democratic input. You can't call that a bipartisan bill. It's a partisan bill. Anyway, Johnson pushed this partisan, one-sided CR and said, take it or leave it. I'm going home. He shut the House down now, the House of Representatives, for 3 weeks, and he has said he won't bring the House back until the Senate Democrats cave to his demands. He also continues to outright lie about Democrats trying to give undocumented immigrants health insurance through ACA or Medicaid. That was a lie yesterday, it's a lie today, it'll be a lie tomorrow. He knows that, and yet he's still saying it to distract from the real issue. He doesn't want to solve the crisis of health care premiums, so he makes up these lies and he hopes it will divert people's attention. It's not diverting our attention, Speaker Johnson. We know you're lying and we're paying attention to what the American people need. Every action the Speaker has taken has been geared towards avoiding having to confront the core issue at hand, which is to fix people's health care. So why is he doing this? Well, in part, he doesn't want to come back. He cares more about protecting the Epstein files than protecting the American people from the health care crisis. But also, he has a very big problem. His problem is that House Republicans, his own caucus, are bitterly divided on health care. On one hand, a large number within his conference will never agree to any extension of the ACA premium tax credits. They're against it. But there's also a growing number of House Republicans who realize something needs to be done to fix this mess. Listen to this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the hardest right MAGA loyalists, broke with the Speaker and said we need to fix these ACA tax credits. Let me read what she said. This is not Chuck Schumer. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I am going to go against everyone on this issue because when the tax credits expire this year, my own adult children's insurance premium for 2026 are going to double, along with all the wonderful families and hardworking people in my district. So hold on to your hats. I think this is the first time I said this, but on this issue, Representative Greene said it perfectly. Representative Greene is absolutely right. Republicans can't sit by and do nothing while American families pay thousands more out of pocket for health care. If the Speaker doesn't relent and these credits expire, people will go bankrupt. People will get sick. Some will die. Inaction would be reprehensible, and the Speaker needs to realize that. And that's why, when push comes to shove, Donald Trump needs to step in and get Speaker Johnson and Republicans in Congress to come to the table and engage in real negotiations to address this issue. Democrats stand ready and willing to negotiate. We urge Donald Trump and congressional Republicans to do the same. I yield the floor. Absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
President.
Majority Whip.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be initiated.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the American people reject what is going on here, and that is the Schumer shutdown. We are now in day 7 of the Schumer shutdown, 7 days of wasted time and growing hardship on the American people. There's a new Harvard-Harris poll that had just come out, and it makes it loud and clear. And what's loud and clear is that 7 in 10 voters in America oppose the government shutdown. Americans overwhelmingly say Democrats should accept a continuing resolution at the current levels of funding until the actual spending bills are passed. And it's interesting, Mr. President, because 13 times in the Biden administration, the Democrats did exactly that. And it's the thing they're refusing to do right now. Americans don't want their government closed. They want it open. They want it to work for them. They want a nation that is safe and secure and prosperous. And they're sick and tired of Democrats holding them hostage with partisan and unreasonable demands. What do the Democrats want? What did their demand letter say? It said they want free health care for illegal immigrants. This is opposed by an overwhelmingly large number of Americans. The Democrats shut down the government, and they think they're hurting President Trump. In fact, the Schumer shutdown is hurting people all across America. Across this country, Americans are feeling the pain. There's headlines that tell the story, and I have a few here, Mr. President. One in New York says, quote, "Government shutdowns threatens food access for Long Island's most vulnerable." Another in Nevada says, quote, "Government shutdown threatens food stamps, jobs, national security." In New Jersey, one reads, "Hospital at home, telehealth programs are on hold amid government shutdown." And in New Hampshire, quote, "At least 1,800 New Hampshire federal workers to be furloughed or fired during shutdown." They're not statistics. These are families, these are our troops, these are seniors, these are veterans, these are mothers with young children, working families, patients, all across the country. And the stresses upon American families are mounting during the end result of the Schumer shutdown. Paychecks for our service members, well, they run out in days. Reports already show there are signs of financial distress. Every day this shutdown continues, the damage drags on. Financial stress will lead to financial crises for many families. Temporary hardships will lead to lasting harm. The American people don't want it, they can't afford it, they want it to end. Democrats have now voted 5 specific times to keep the government closed. And all you need to do is read their ransom note. Democrats demanding taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants. And who do they want to hurt in the process? They want to cut the funding for rural hospitals in my state and yours. That's how they want to pay for the health care for illegal immigrants. That's their price to reopen the government, to get back to the normal workings of Washington and our government. And as a result, the Democrats are holding the American people hostage. There's a simple solution to the shutdown. The House passed a clean continuing resolution, current spending levels, bipartisan support to fund the government through November 21st. Why November 21st? Well, I just heard the minority leader say that there's been no discussions between Republicans or Democrats on the continuing resolutions. Well, in fact, there has been, and it's the deadline date of November 21st. Because the chair and the ranking member of the Senate Appropriations Committee and the House Appropriations Committee all said they needed 7 weeks to finish the bipartisan work on the appropriations bills. So yeah, Senator Collins, Senator Murray, they worked together on the clean continuing resolution. It's interesting because what we see are the Democrats fearing the wrath of their far left wing of their party. That's why they're not voting to open the government. The clock continues to tick. Every day Democrats hold out is another day wasted. Another day we ought to be making sure that the government is open. I hear that the Democrats say they want to negotiate. Well, open the government, we're ready to negotiate. Every day Democrats choose to keep the government closed is another day spent ignoring and rejecting the priorities of the American people. If Democrats actually want to negotiate, they would reopen the government today. It is that simple. So today, Mr. President, we're going to vote for the 6th time on a clean, continuing resolution, something Democrats approved 13 times when Joe Biden was president. Senate Democrats have a choice. Vote yes to end the Schumer shutdown, or vote no and tell the American people why their pain and their opinion just doesn't matter to the Democrats. Let me end where I begin. 7 in 10 Americans oppose this shutdown. Americans overwhelmingly say Democrats should accept the clean, continuing resolution that we are voting on here today. American people have spoken. They want their government open, and they want it open now. It's time that the Democrats listened to them. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. Suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston Brooks.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Is the Senate currently in a quorum call?
Yes, we are.
I'd ask unanimous consent to set it aside.
Without objection.
Mr. President, today is October the 7th, 2025. It's been 731 days, 2 years that the war has been raging in Israel. October the 7th, 2023, Hamas terrorists stormed through a fence line separating Gaza and Israel. And early that morning, they brutally slaughtered over 1,200 people, men, women, children, moms and dads, grandparents. There were 4,000 plus people injured. There were 251 people taken hostage. 48 still remain today, 2 years later. It's hard to process what it's like for those hostages, living in tunnels, stored underground, moved from place to place. Who knows what has happened to them? 2 years. For 2 years, Israel has said one simple thing: this war ends when Hamas, that terrorist organization, is not in charge of Gaza, because clearly they cannot be trusted, and when our hostages come home. For 2 years, this war has raged unnecessarily because a terrorist organization is determined to drive Jews out of Israel. For 2 years. I've been in Israel a couple of times during the war. Be able to visit with senior leadership there, be able to get a status update, but also took the opportunity to drive south, right along to the Gaza border, to visit the kibbutz that are now empty, which were previously full of families and children. I was there in the springtime last year and saw the flowers popping up just organically on their own in an empty kibbutz. And realized the horror of what could have happened that day. I visited the Nova Music Festival. Just a big open field with trees around it. You can look across the horizon and see Gaza. But the Nova Music Festival side of that field was just a gathering place for literally an all-night set of concerts that were running early into the next morning. People just there enjoying the music until terrorists came into that field and started killing as many people as they could, raping as many women as they could, and tormenting as many people as they could, and grabbing folks and taking them back into Gaza as hostages. Elkanah was one of those men. He was a husband, he was a dad of a young son. He was actually taking hostage back to Gaza from the Nova Music Festival while he was literally trying to help the wounded. But he remains a hostage still today, one of those 48. President Trump has laid out a 21-point plan and has presented it between Gaza, the folks in Gaza and Hamas and Israel, to leadership all in the Arab world, and has made a very simple statement: we have to find a way to be able to end the fighting. But when the fighting ends, Hamas cannot be in leadership in Gaza. Not only do they not have the trust of Israel, they don't have the trust of anyone in the region. They have to go. The hostages have to be released. There's going to have to be restoration in Gaza in the days ahead that should be led by the Arab communities around them. But there has to be a different path. And there has to be a recognition that Israel has a right to exist. In the last 2 years, we've seen not only Hamas attacking Israel, Palestinian Islamic Jihad attacking Israel, Hezbollah attacking Israel, the Houthis attacking Israel, and then missiles and rockets being fired and drones being fired from Iran. All the while, we hear some protesters in the streets of America on college campuses chanting from the river to the sea, literally in support of some of those terrorists that are trying to kill as many Jews and drive the Jews out of Israel. So on this day, on October the 7th, I want to remind this body and Americans that we continue to stand by Israel. We continue to be able to stand by their right to not only exist, but to be able to thrive and to live in peace. That is their right as a nation. As we have faced terrorism and the threats of terrorism to come to us, we as a nation have pushed back against terrorism around the world and said we will live in freedom and in peace. Regardless of your opinions of us, we have the right to be able to live in freedom and peace. And we stand with Israel's right to be able to do the same, to be able to live in freedom and peace. Now, we all grieve for innocent civilians that are living in Gaza right now, as Hamas literally uses them as a shield to protect their terrorist ambitions. No one wants to see civilians killed. But leave no doubt, Hamas cannot exist as an organization and an entity. And the folks in Hezbollah should hear clearly, and the Houthis should hear clearly, if you stand with Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you're a threat to the security of the entire world and the region. You cannot continue to function as a terrorist organization and think that Israel will look away or that America will look away. We will not, and cannot, and will not. So I encourage this body to pause and realize what's happening on the other side of the world right now and what has been raging for 2 years today, and those hostages that are still being held today, that we would remember and we would continue to be able to stand against anti-Semitism and with the nation of Israel. Mr. President, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to continue speaking and to put this in a different portion in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we're 7 days deep into a government shutdown. What a ridiculous waste of time. What a painful, ridiculous waste of time for the nation. I can't tell you how frustrating it is because I've been here long enough now to be able to see what the negotiations look like. Let me tell you what it just looks like for the last few years even. Let's go back just through the Biden administration. Every single end of September, as we approached the deadline for government funding, this body had a conversation. Do we want to remain open and continue negotiating, or do we want to shut down? And every single time during the Biden administration, this body said it's harmful to the American people and to federal workers to have a shutdown. Let's keep things open and continue to be able to negotiate. So the end of every September, which is the end of our fiscal year, this body voted to keep the government open and to continue to negotiate. But what happens when the Trump administration comes? Well, during the Trump administration, Democrats have determined that they want to show they're fighting and raging, they're the resistance against President Trump, and so they've determined the best way to do that is just to be able to shut the government down. The same effect happens for federal workers. The same effect happens for the nation. We have the same opinion across the world as the entire world looks at the United States of America, the greatest nation in the world, which is apparently not able to keep its government open. Because my Democratic colleagues have determined they want to show that they are the resistance. Well, who gets to pay the penalty for the resistance? And what does that really look like? We've had several votes that have happened here where we've had what's called a clean continuing resolution. This body knows it well because we voted on 13 of them in the last 4 years. A clean continuing resolution, and passed all of them. It was just a moment to say, can we keep the government open and continue to negotiate? The body determined, yes, let's keep negotiating, but let's not hurt federal workers and their families, let's hurt members of the military and their families, let's not hurt them. Let's keep the negotiating here. So we did that 13 times in just the last 4 years, until now. My Democratic colleagues, as the President knows full well, have brought forward a proposal. Their proposal is titled Continuing Appropriations and Extensions and Other Matters. Now, ours is just titled Continuing Appropriations and Extensions. Theirs is titled Continuing Appropriations and Extensions and Other Matters. It should make you say, well, what are the other matters? Well, ours just keeps the government open, that is, Republicans, just keeps the government open at status quo, where we are. Same level of spending, same functionality, that's where it focuses in on. My Democratic colleagues have brought their own proposal, which is $1.5 trillion in spending addition, and they include a couple new little nuggets in there, and other matters. They throw in like Section 135, which has a new element on carbon management expenditures, dealing with fossil fuels. They have a new section on climate change initiatives that are built into their and other matters. They have Section 154, which is getting additional funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They have Section 2306, which allows a new extension of electric vehicles getting access to HOV lanes. These are the demands that they put in to say, we will not reopen the government unless we get electric vehicles into HOV lanes, and additional money for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and carbon management expenditures. And oh, by the way, there was a $50 billion rural health care fund that Republicans passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. They also want to get rid of that $50 billion rural health care fund, saying we need to wipe that out. Can I tell you, rural hospitals really need the help. $50 billion would really be a huge help for them. We have called that the moonshot to be able to bring rural health care up to the standards that they need to be across the country. They just wiped that out and included that in their in other matters section. To say, yes, we want to open up the government, but we also want to close down more rural hospitals at the same time. Listen, we have disagreements on things. It's not we're just different parties. We come from different states and different areas. We have different perspectives. Welcome to America. We have different opinions on things. That's what this body is supposed to be about. But when we have disagreements, we should be able to actually sit down like grown-ups and talk to each other and figure out how to be able to solve it. That's what actually should be done. This is not a radical concept. This is a pretty straightforward concept. Surprisingly enough, my colleagues have agreed with me in the past on this. Let me just give you some examples. My colleague, Senator Ben Ray Lujan, in September of last year said shutting down the government should be a non-starter. My colleague, Senator Mark Warner, said government shutdowns unleash chaos on federal workers, delay pay for service members, and weaken our position on the global stage. My colleague, Bernie Sanders, said shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent. Shutting down the government would impact tens of millions of our fellow Americans who would be unable to access government services. My colleague and friend Jackie Rosen said a government shutdown would be devastating to Nevada families. It would increase housing costs, take away food assistance for seniors and children in need. My colleague, Senator Mark Kelly, September of 2023, said a government shutdown would have serious impacts. Service members won't get their paychecks. Airports would have major delays. Nutrition assistance for children could be cut off. We can't let any of that happen. My colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, said the least we can do, the bare minimum we can do, would be to pass a continuing resolution to keep the doors open and the lights on. My colleague, Brian Schatz, said, I've seen the same thing over and over again. Shutdowns don't work. My colleague, Senator Gary Peters, said a government shutdown will be a disaster for our economy and for people in Michigan and across the country. My colleague Tim Kaine said, I'm a senator from Virginia. Some of the hardest effects of a shutdown would be seen in my state. My colleague Senator Dick Durbin has said, negotiating to avoid a government shutdown holds the livelihood of the American people and the proper functioning of this government hostage. My colleague Amy Klobuchar has said shutdowns are not good for the economy. And how about this one? Oh, I've got to find my favorite. My colleague, Chris Murphy, and my friend, made the statement, there's a time and a place to debate health care, just like there's a time and a place to debate energy policy, immigration, and education, but not when funding the federal government and all the lives that are impacted by it hang in the balance. I could not agree more. So we have an opportunity just to be able to open the government up. We have literally a bill on the floor today, just like we had yesterday, that's already passed the House of Representatives, that would just open us up for another 6 weeks now, allow us to be able to get appropriations work done, and to reopen. The same thing we did 4 times during the Biden administration in September, the same thing we've done 13 times in the last 4 years, just to be able to keep the negotiations going and to not have all these consequences. I've worked for years to be able to end government shutdowns. So my colleagues that are here on the floor know it full well. We've talked about it before multiple times. I have a bill that's called Preventing Government Shutdowns. It's very straightforward. It just says if we get to a moment like this, instead of federal workers and their families suffering the consequences, we do. We have to stay in session 7 days a week. We can't move to any other bill other than appropriations. And we have to be able to get our work done. It is as simple as if you don't finish your work at class, you have to stay after class to finish your work. But it holds everyone else harmless and puts the pressure on members of Congress where it should be. This is not a controversial issue outside of this body. The last time we had a vote on this bill, we had 56 votes, and one member that was absent that day stated publicly would have voted for it if they'd have been in that day. So we would add 57 votes. We just need 60 to be able to make this thing law, and so that we would literally never have a government shutdown ever again, ever. We would still have the debate on budget issues. We're going to have issues of budget disagreement. That's going to happen. We don't agree on everything. We should have the fights on budget, but we should have the fights here and hold everyone